Hi everybody and welcome to another Heroes of the Grid How to Play video. Today's video was a request, and so I decided, since I just finished covering the Arsenal cards, why not dive into a little bit more of the extra how to play aspects of the game. And today I'm going to be covering the Legendary Ranger mode. Now the idea behind Legendary Ranger mode is to combine multiple Ranger decks to create one single combat deck that you can use when playing the game. It's a play off of the Legendary Ranger mode that the Super Mega Force team had, and this is a way for any player can combine decks from any combination of Rangers that they want. There are some stipulations to it, and I'll start covering those in a moment, but just know that you cannot do Legendary Ranger mode if players controlling multiple Rangers at once. It might sound kind of odd that if you're controlling two Rangers, you can't use Legendary Ranger mode where you're choosing multiple Rangers, but just know that if a Ranger is controlling two Rangers, then you cannot do Legendary Ranger mode. Aside from that, I think that's the only official mode that Legendary Ranger mode cannot go into. Alright, so jumping right in. To play Legendary Ranger mode, once you start when you're setting up your game, you'll choose a combination of Rangers that you want to play. Now in my case, so let's say if I'm playing with 4 other players, so I'm going to do a 5-player scenario. So myself, I decide I'm going to do Legendary Ranger mode. And for this example, I wanted to use Billy, naturally, since he's my favorite Ranger. And I wanted to come up with something kind of thematic with him. And I settled on a wolf theme, since Billy was the Blue Wolf Ninja Ranger in Season 3 of Mighty Morphin. So with that in mind, I decided to choose Billy, Merrick from Wild Force, and RJ from Jungle Fury. And once you choose the Rangers you're going to use for Legendary Ranger mode, you'll take their figures, their character cards, and their combat decks. Now, once you have their combat decks, you're going to combine different cards from all of the Rangers that you've chosen into one 10-card combat deck. Now, there are stipulations to how you can build that 10-card combat deck. Like I said, it has to be 10 cards, and the shield value of all those 10 cards has to be 20 shields. You can't go 21 shields, 19 shields, anything like that. With that in mind, there are 4 combinations to making this combat deck. The official rules say that there's only 3, but I don't think they really had really thought about the 4th possible combination. Or maybe there's a reason they say that you can only do one of the 3 options. But so the first 3 options that the official rules say you can use to create the 20 shield combat deck is 3/3 shield cards, 4/2 shield cards, 3/1 shield cards, the standard shield value for most Rangers. There's also the option of doing 1/3 shield card, 8 2 shield cards, and 1/1 shield card, kind of like Trini does in the Mighty Morphin, the base game. The third option, and the final one that they say in the official rules, is to have 2 3 shield cards, 6 2 shield cards, and 2 1 shield cards. And Delphine from the Alien Rangers actually has this combination, I believe. But there is one 4th combination that isn't in the rulebook for some reason, but I mean, I don't see why you couldn't go with this option. It would be 5 3 shield cards and 5 1 shield cards. It still adds up to 20 shields. And Dragon Armor Trini actually has this for her deck. So whichever combo you want to go with, I mean, it's up to you. It really depends on how you want to build out the Rangers. So I will kind of show you just some general examples that I made. They're not optimized in any way, shape, or form. They're just random cards that I kind of threw together just to kind of show how that would work. So the first option is the standard 3/3 shields, 4/2 shields, 3/1 shields. And for that, I chose Billy's 2 Mighty Maces, Merrick's Lunar Q, and those are all the 3 shield cards. For the 2 shields, I chose both of Merrick's Claws of the Wolf and both of RJ's Wolf Fang Strikes. And finally, for the 1 shields, I went with Paischwa Strike from RJ's deck and 2 Full Moon Slashes from Merrick's deck. I should also note that when combining cards from all the different Ranger decks, you cannot have any more than 2 cards with the same name in the combat deck that you make. The one exception, I believe, to that would most likely be Protect and Serve. And that's because it was kind of an error on Renegade's part. They didn't realize that there was already a card named Protect and Serve from the Hyperforce team. And so they gave that name to a card that the Blue Centurion has. And they're not the same effect whatsoever. So I'd say you probably could make an exception for just those two specifically because they're completely different effects, just happen to have the same name. That's kind of, up to you, whatever you want to do. But I know there are multiple rangers that have, let's say, Flying Kick. Ninjor and Kimberly are at the top of my head have Flying Kick, so you can't use 4 copies of Flying Kick in one combat deck because they have the same name. And since they have the same effect, that's not an error or anything like that. But anyway, moving on to the second option that you can use to build the deck. I chose to have Merrick's Lunar Q. Both of RJ's Wolf-Fang Strikes, both copies of Merrick's Claws of the Wolf, both copies of Billy's Knowledge's Power, both copies of Billy's Tactical Strike, and 1 copy of Merrick's Full Moon Slash. That's the option with 1/3 shield, 8/2 shields, and 1/1 shield. The third combination I went with 1 copy of Spirit of the Wolf, 1 copy of Lunar Q, 2 copies of Knowledge's Power, 2 copies of Howling Wolf, 2 copies of Wolf-Fang Strike, 1 copy of Pai Shui Strike, and 1 copy of Counter Jab. And that is the third option with 2/3 shields, 6 2 shields, and 2 1 shields. Finally, the last combo, I have both copies of Billy's Mighty Maces, both of RJ's Swoop Technique cards, Billy's Power Lance, 2 copies of Counter Jab, 2 copies of Full Moon Slash, and Pai Shui Strike. And that's the combo that has 5/3 shields and 5/1 shields. Like I said, none of these are optimized whatsoever, really. I just wanted to have a wolf theme, and I just kind of threw them together for this video to give you an example. Now, the combat decks are combined into one combat deck. You just play them as you would normally. You draw, up to 5 once the battle starts. You play them from your hand, pay the energy. They get discarded. You can add them back to your hand with various effects, so on and so on. However, the character cards, when you first start the game, after you've chosen the rangers that you want, you'll choose one of the character cards and put it on top with the other 2 underneath it, and that will be the active ranger. And while the active ranger is on top, you can only use that active ranger's character ability. If I chose Billy to start the game off, I could only use his strategize ability. I couldn't use Merrick's Lone Wolf or RJ's Unorthodox Master abilities. There is a way to change which character is the active ranger, however. And to do that, when you perform a move or recover action, you can at that time swap the active ranger. So at the start of the fight, like I said, I chose Billy to start off, but once I see the deployment, I think, oh wait, I'm gonna maybe have to go off by myself to take on some foot soldiers. So I'd like to have Merrick on top because as long as I play his cards, everything gets reduced by 1. When I move over, I'll make Merrick the active ranger, and whichever ranger is active, you'll put their figure on inner or outer location, depending on where you're located. Basically, you'll just swap their figures as you switch the active ranger. And then once I'm done with that, on the next deployment after monsters been deployed, if I want to go help my team, when I move over there, I might decide, hey, I want RJ on top because if any ranger performs a maneuver or reaction, I can gain 1 energy for the team. So I'll put him on top to potentially gain that effect. Or if I want to go back to Billy, because his strategize is still a good one. Ranger can draw 1 card and put 1 card from their hand back on top of their deck. If I want to defend for my team or something like that, that'd be a good idea. But like I said, whenever you move, or if you do the recover action, you cannot do this if you get sent back to the command center because you're defeated. It has to be if you move. If you move to the command center, you can switch because that's a move. But if you're sent there due to being defeated in battle, that doesn't count as you moving. So you can't switch if you're defeated. That's really the only caveat to switching the active ranger. But like I said, if you perform the recover action, you can swap them as well. So after you fought, let's say, the first round of a boss fight, you want to recover, and you think, oh, RJ wasn't doing so well, so I'll go to Billy or Merrick for the final boss round because since I'm kind of low on cards, I don't have as many resources, so I want to reduce the cost of everything I can play. Well, you can only reduce the Lunar Wolf Ranger cards, not Billy's or RJ's, just so you know, because that's what it says specifically on Merrick's card. But yeah, that is Legendary Ranger mode. I should note that technically there's no limit to how many Rangers you can choose to build from in Legendary Ranger mode, but in reality, you can't choose any more than 10 Rangers because you have to construct the combat deck with cards from every Ranger that you choose. Since you can only have up to 10 cards, you could theoretically choose 10 different Rangers and choose one card each from their combat decks to make one deck. Yeah, but you can't get any higher than that. So 10 is the unofficial cutoff. I mean, you really probably wouldn't want to do 10 different Rangers unless you have like a really weird, crazy, fantastic combination in mind that you want to pull off. And the reason I say that is because you only have so many actions you can do in a game in terms of moving and recovering. So the active Ranger, you probably won't be able to switch. You won't be able to switch out into 10 different Rangers unless you prolong the game to go multiple rounds that are, beyond the normal limit. But I mean, you could theoretically do that if you want to just prolong the game so you can keep switching the active Ranger, or if you want to choose 10 different cards from 10 different Ranger decks, but you just want to use 1 or 2 Rangers as the active Ranger, you can just keep swapping between those 2 if you want throughout the game. So there's really nothing saying you can't. It's just, I don't necessarily think it's the best idea for you to. But yeah, I believe that's everything. Oh, the Zords. Let's say I'm the only one who decided to do Legendary Ranger mode. All the other players are still, they only chose 1 Ranger. They still get their Zord like they normally do. They're playing as they normally would. For me, since I'm doing Legendary Ranger mode, I have to choose one of the Zords that's associated with one of the Rangers that I decided to use, and that's the one that I can use for the game. I can't swap them out back and forth. In Merrick's case, since he comes with his Zords are all interconnected, if I chose his Zords, I would get all 3 of them. That's just because they swap back and forth. I would just play like I would normally if I chose Merrick. But if I want the Triceratops, then I lose access. I won't be able to use Merrick's or RJ's Zord for the game. So that's a decision that you really have to think about at the start before you actually start playing the game. But yeah, that is just about everything with the Legendary Ranger mode. I hope this made sense, and I hope I didn't go too fast. I hope the examples were adequate. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them as best I can. Like I said, I haven't used Legendary Ranger mode myself, and I'm sure there'll probably be some specific scenarios that I can't think of off the top of my head where there might be some conflicts in terms of how either Legendary Ranger mode works compared to the actual Ranger themselves. But yeah, in the meantime, head on over to onceranger.com, check out the full card database, check out the shop, and affiliate links will be provided below. And look forward to the next video. Thank you.